All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today I'm joined with a special guest, the Master of Ceremonies for this episode, or, in my case, I think it's more Padawan of Ceremonies, but my sister is here joining the podcast again.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be back, even if it is as a Padawan.
Everyone starts somewhere, Jen.
Lovely.
And today's really exciting for me because, as I mentioned way back in the first episode, I belong to the Clone Wars generations of fans. So being able to count down my top 20 Clone Wars episodes is probably my most anticipated episode to do. So now that we're here, I'm excited. And my sister Jen is here as well, which is awesome because we used to watch them together a lot. So it's only right that we do it this way. And since it is a top 20, obviously I can't do all 20 in one episode. We'll be here for way too long. So I'm going to be breaking it down into 4 sections, 5 episodes each. Today we will be getting all my math whizzes out there from 20 to 16. 5 episodes. I know. You got it. Gold star.
Well done.
Gold star. So yeah, Jen's just going to basically, talk me through these as I go down, up, down, down my list
You
from
count
20.
down.
Yes.
Yeah, countdown.
See, I'm now the math whiz here. So yes, I'll be starting at 20 and counting down to 16. Jen will kind of be giving me some feedback, maybe some questions on why I'm really into one episode over another. And that's really how we'll do it. So yeah, let's get into it.
Let us begin.
Let us pray.
All right. Number 20 is...
That probably sounded terrible on the mic, but I thought it was nice and poetic to start my list with the start of the series, with the season premiere, Season 1, Episode 1, Ambush. Now, I really like Ambush. I know it's usually a forgotten episode because it's very simple, and most of the episodes in the first season are very simple premises, but I think simplicity is beauty sometimes. And with this episode, I think you got all the trappings of what the Clone Wars would become. You have the clones being more than just soldiers. They think they are just there to be cannon fodder, to be soldiers. And Yoda, I love the scene where they're all around the fire and Yoda comes up to him and he's like, what makes you better than droids is that you're individuals and you each have your own strengths. And it kind of sets up this theme for the rest of the show that these clones are going to be much deeper than the ones that you saw in the movies, which they definitely delivered on that promise. The other portion of the episode is really about these neutral worlds and how they deal with this separatist republic conflict. So in this one, you have Toydaria, and you have the separatists with Asajj Ventress making her debut, saying, you need to join the separatist cause because the republic, they're weak. The Jedi are over-exaggerated in their power. And, you have this tug of war, and then throughout the series, you see all these neutral worlds like, do I really want to join the republic? Do I really want to be subjected to military occupation, rule, all that stuff. So I think this episode sets all that up. It also does a little humor with the droids, which, continues throughout the series, which is fun. And the action, I think, overall is really creative. I like how it's, it's a 3 versus a whole battalion, and they come out on top.
Well, I have a question about that.
Sure.
Because I don't really remember Yoda being in a lot of the Clone Wars as far as battles and interacting with the clones either.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yoda really isn't on the front lines. I mean, in Revenge of the Sith he is, and you know how that turns out with his clones.
The nice Kashyyyk decapitation
Yeah,
scene.
how that turns out anyway. But yeah, that's true. He mostly is in the council chamber. He's mostly just giving advice. He's never really on the front lines until, I think, Season 6, that last arc he has.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's another thing that makes the episode unique is you get to see Yoda interact with these people and, give that advice to them that, Yoda usually reserves this high and mighty praise to other Jedi and other Padawans. So seeing him give these lessons to clones, which aren't even Force-sensitive creatures, I think that makes him a great character even more. It elevates him a little more.
And I mean, for the audience, we trust Yoda. We love Yoda. We know him from its movies and everything. So I also feel like it might have been almost like the writers talking through Yoda to try and welcome the audience into what this show is going to be about. Like, this is going to be about the clones. This is going to be about the war. This is going to be about the battle between which planets are going to go Republic or Separatist or stay neutral. Like, like you said, it's truly like an introduction to some of the big themes that are going on in the story.
And I think they also work in some good, Empire Strikes Back Yoda humor in it as he's jumping around and helping the clones. I think it's a really light episode. It's simple, but I think in this case the simplicity works, and that's why it's number 20.
Simple, simple, simple. All right. Well, moving on, we have number. I'm not gonna do it again because you insulted my last one. 19.
Yeah. No more drum rolls. So this is big here. I'm gonna say Gungan General, which is season 1, episode 12. This episode features the notorious Jar Jar Binks doing Jar Jar Binks things. But I think it is done
You're gonna get a lot of flack for this.
I think it is done tastefully well. The reason I like the episode is not solely because of Jar Jar. The reason I really like the episode is because Hondo is introduced in the last episode, but in this episode you really learn more about him. You learn, obviously he's funny, obviously he's full of himself, obviously he thinks he is the best pirate in the galaxy, obviously he's trying to screw everyone over. But at the end of the episode, you see this honorable side to him. He has this code. My favorite part of the episode is when all this happens and Obi-Wan leaves and Count Dooku gets away and all of Hondo's pirates are about to pull their guns on the Jedi, and he's like, whoa, hold on. He's like, wait, you're just going to walk away, Kenobi? And he's like, we have no quarrel with you, so we'll just go our separate ways. And Hondo's like, very honorable of you, Jedi. And I think that, makes him an interesting character moving forward because, it kind of cements him as someone you don't root for outwardly, but deep down you want to see him win.
Yeah, he's a bad guy that you like to watch. He's like a Captain Jack Sparrow, which
exactly.
I think a lot of pirate characters tend to be that.
That's true.
Like, they're allowed to be kind of tiptoe on that morally gray, like, not good, not bad, but ultimately you're like, but you're not bad. You're just, like, funny bad.
Yeah, and how could I not include a Hondo episode in a top 20 Clone Wars episode? I mean, he was in the Clone Wars, and he was so good that he was in Rebels, and now he has his own shop at Galaxy's Edge. So he's obviously made an impression. I think this episode is one of the main reasons that impression is felt now.
Poor Jar Jar. Even in his own titular episode, someone else outshines.
Yeah. Other than Hondo, though, for this episode, I mean, seeing Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Count Dooku all imprisoned together, tied up on a chain gang together, is just hilarious. It's something everyone wanted to see because they always had that witty, quippy dialogue to each other in the movies, Attack of the Clones, and then obviously Revenge of the Sith.
Well, they also have a really cool lineage because Dooku trained Qui-Gon.
Exactly.
Qui-Gon trained Obi-Wan and picked out Anakin, so it's not like he's some random
Exactly.
Sith.
There's some history.
Yeah, and part of what Obi-Wan learned from Qui-Gon, I mean, he must have gotten from Dooku, so that whole Obi-Wan's arrogance from Qui-Gon's wisdom all came somewhere from Dooku.
And Anakin lost his hand to Count Dooku.
I mean...
so that's an elephant in the room.
I was gonna say, that's just a nice little, like, by the way moment.
Yeah, I think the humor in this episode is really well done for a kid's show, and I think the humor stands up to this day. I watched it the other day. My roommates are watching Clone Wars now, and I watched it the other day, and I was genuinely laughing. Like, the jokes were funny, everything was well timed, so that was the main reason. Jar Jar, cool, he saves the day, but I think the other two parts are so strong that it carries the episode for me.
So strong that it's number 19. How many episodes were in the whole series?
140, I think.
Wow, look at you, Jar Jar. Right under the radar.
Yeah.
114, and you slipped into the top 20.
Okay, so disclaimer here. Yes, I agree that there are probably some arcs that have episodes that are better than this one. But my argument is that those episodes are only great because they're inside those arcs. I think by themselves, they're strong.
But it's because they're a piece of the whole arc.
Exactly. And this is my list, so it's my rules.
All right. Well, Mr. Rulemaker of the list.
Yeah.
Should we move on to number 18?
That'd be great.
All right. Let us go. What is your number 18?
A surprise, another season 1 episode, which I'd like to make a quick little note about.
Another disclaimer.
I didn't say disclaimer, I said note. I think... Footnote. I think season 1 is... It gets a lot of flack, and I understand for some reasons, but I think overall it tells a lot of great self-contained stories that extend the lore of the galaxy a lot, and when you look back at them, you do realize how much of the show was shaped based on these episodes. And I think people really do forget that. I know people say that phrase a lot. Oh, people forget how good this was. But I really mean that. When I see people say, oh, season 1 was so weak, I really don't see it when I go back and look. And I think that's kind of reflected in this list.
Well, also, I mean, people always say, like, I think you had this in your last week's episode when you were talking about your ranking, where you're saying the ending of a trilogy, if it ends well, that'll automatically be your favorite. Like, obviously, season 6 and 7, not 6 so much, but season 7 is so strong, is so powerful, and people are like, oh, they're such good episodes. Like, yeah, but you had to do 7 seasons of build-up. You had to start somewhere. You had to have these moments of world building and self-contained episodes and character building so that when you get to season 7, it all culminates into powerful moments. So I wouldn't hate on you for having a lot of season 1 in here, because they're the reason that we got to season 7.
Yeah, and my listeners don't want a vanilla list. They don't just want...
No.
They don't want that. They want some hot takes.
They want the spice.
Yeah, they want the spice that Hondo was trying to take.
All the spice.
All right, so yes, without that in the way, season 1, episode 14, Defenders of Peace. This episode was really cool because it deals with this idea that pacifism in the face of war.
The lemur episode, right?
Yeah, the Lerman and their Irish/Scottish accents, even though they're definitely based on African culture. I don't know. It's a weird mixture. But I think most people would agree the defense of their home village is really cool with the defoliator and them having to put up the shield and them infiltrating
there it is.
This separatist base and get this shield generator and defend these people, even though they're so stuck in their ways that they don't want to fight, because if they think they fight, that they're automatically going against generations of belief. And, you see them grow, but I think the other great part of it is you see the Jedi grow, and you see Ahsoka see people being pacifist, and that challenging her idea of what she's learning about the galaxy, because she's introduced to the galaxy with war, and now she's seeing normal people be like, oh no, we don't want to fight. And she's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, she was picked up, brought to the Jedi Academy, pretty much did her like little teachings, and now her entire exposure to everything beyond Coruscant has been war. So for her, like, cool Jedi go out into battle, and she has like the coolest Jedi as a master. So the idea of her interacting with pacifists, like, she could be someone with the perspective of that pacifism is weakness, or
right.
And she learns that pacifism isn't weakness. And I feel like that also sets up a little bit of where her journey starts as well, because she kind of goes on a journey of when is it right to fight? And doesn't she say at like the end of Clone Wars, like, all I've ever known ever since I was a Padawan was a soldier. Yeah. But like, she doesn't want to be a soldier.
Yeah.
So I think this was actually a very formative episode, and I feel like people remember this episode
a lot. Yeah. And it's funny when, these Jedi come in all high and mighty to these villagers, and they say, we're Jedi, we're defenders of peace, there's the episode name. we're defenders of peace, we're
there it is.
He said it. They're defenders of peace, they're peacekeepers. And then you go into this village, and this village is like, well, you're fighting a war. You realize that's not peacemaking.
I was going to say, it's funny because it challenges, like, Jedi see themselves as defenders of peace and keepers of peace, and then they meet people who are actually peacekeepers.
Exactly.
And it's like,
wait a minute. Yeah, and I think my favorite part about Clone Wars with Anakin is that every time he says, like, Jedi, dogma and all that stuff, you can tell there's a part of him that doesn't fully believe it.
It's like parroted almost.
Yeah, like he's like, yeah, we're defenders of peace. How can you live in this galaxy and not fight for what you believe in? And then he's, in the back of his head, he's probably like, yeah, they're kind of right, but I can't.
Sounds kind of like, what's that word? Propaganda-y.
Kind of, yeah, with Anakin, like taking it in but thinking on his own.
Yeah,
exactly. So, and you see Ayla Secura. You don't really see Ayla Secura too much. You only really, before that, you just saw her get absolutely gunned down on Felucia. But she's awesome, and she brings a little French accent, and we get introduced to more clones. Captain Rex, obviously you see him become a defender. I mean, I said it again. He's guarding Anakin in this little 2-episode thing, and The clones are another cool perspective to this episode because they're kind of exempt from this whole argument because they are soldiers. So, like, they don't claim to be peacekeepers. They don't claim to be this. So they're kind of like
they
the
don't
only
have a moral ground to
they're
stand
kind
on.
of they're the only ones that aren't hypocrites in this episode. They're kind of like, yeah, I fight wars. I'm not a pacifist, but I'm doing this for the right reason, I think. So I think that's another layer that's folded into this. And I think the last part of the episode with the sun going down and the sky is all cloudy because they just set off a bomb and the shield generator's going down and the villagers are going crazy and there's just mayhem. And I think it's a really powerful episode, to be honest.
I would agree.
Good.
All right. Number 17.
Number 17 is a great one because this one is the first one that I saw and I was like, this is really violent.
Oh, yeah.
And
I just read the title, yeah.
And throughout the season, there is a lot of violence. I mean, the Lair of Grievous, there was a lot of violence too. But this one was like cold-blooded violence, like no empathy, no remorse violence. And the episode I'm talking about is the season finale of season 1, Hostage Crisis. So my original recording for Hostage Crisis with my sister, I wasn't overly satisfied with how it came out, so I'm re-recording it right now. Sorry, Jen, you got cut, but that's show business. But Hostage Crisis is really a great episode. It's your introduction to Cad Bane, and what instantly hooks you to him is he is in control of the situation at all times. At no part of this episode, whether the Jedi were involved, Palpatine was involved, the clones showing up, no time at all were you like, oh, I don't know if Cad Bane's going to get out of this. Every step of the way, he is in control. You can tell that every piece of it is part of his plan. After every step, you hear him say, follow me, follow me, follow me. He has everything planned out to a T, and it goes off without a hitch. Even with variables being introduced throughout the episode, you can tell he's never flustered. And I think his walk into the room with all the senators is so reminiscent of the Joker in The Dark Knight when he crashes that party and he's like, we are tonight's entertainment. It's like the same thing with Cad Bane. He shoots at the ceiling. He's like, hello there, senators. and he has like this charm to his voice where he has like this formal way of speaking, but it also has this brutal undertone to it. And he like proves why he's a good bounty hunter. It's not like one of those things where, no shade at Boba Fett, but it wasn't just good enough to look cool with the hat and the cowboy look to him and the outlaw look to him. He embodied it. He was good with a blaster. He was good hand to hand, but he also had the smarts and the forward thinking and the communication skills to totally take out this whole wing of the Senate building and complete his mission while dealing with a Jedi that he didn't expect being there and these super, super smart senators. And then when he finally gets Zero and he's riding off into the sunset as the credits are about to roll, Zero's like, oh, you did such a good job. And he's like, time to pay up, Hut. I don't work for free. And you could tell it's all about the money to him. None of it, there's no feelings behind it. He's totally apathetic to everything. And this is why he remains to be a character in the rest of the show, and we just saw him in Bad Batch. And as I alluded to in the beginning, this episode is hyper-violent. Like, it opens with a bunch of Senate guards getting sniped, and then one getting his neck snapped directly by Cad Bane. And at that point in the series, I was like, whoa, that was pretty dark. I was also 10 at the time, so bear with me. I don't even know if I was 10, honestly. But throughout the episode, I mean, later on, there's a whole group of Senate commandos that come back from their duty, and Cad Bane does this cool thing where he clicks the detonator, and all you hear is the detonator ticking, and he walks up real slowly, throws it in the mess hall, and then the door closes, and he gives a little hat tip, and it blows up, and this one Senate commando just, like, is crawling out, and Order Singh just executioner styles him. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is brutal. The minute Cad Bane steps into the Senate area with all the senators, the one senator says, I will not be talked down to by scum like you, and he starts to walk away, and Cad Bane literally just shoots him without even looking. The whole episode just introduces this hyper dark world of bounty hunters that we hadn't seen, really, other than in Attack of the Clones. But this was like the first time you saw bounty hunters getting their hands dirty. And the other great part about this episode is just seeing Anakin deal with bounty hunters without his lightsaber, because he just had to go to Padme's office and start making out with her. So Padme basically has his lightsaber the whole episode, which is cool at the end because you get to see her use a lightsaber, which my sister really liked in the original recording. Sorry, again. But yeah, the series continues to have more and more bounty hunter episodes, but I don't think any really top this one. There's a couple that are close, but this one just was bounty hunter heaven, honestly.
So, we have reached the pinnacle of the episode.
Yeah.
Number 16.
Number 16. And wouldn't you know, it's another season 1 episode.
Wow.
So season 1, episode 20, Innocence of Ryloth. As we all know, Ryloth needs an arc in every single Star Wars show.
It's Coruscant, Ryloth, and then they have to mention at some point the OG trilogy with planets.
Exactly. So Ryloth was a great trilogy of episodes in this first season because it takes place in so many different sectors of war. Mm-hmm. So you have the first episode, which is all space battle, and I believe Ahsoka has a pretty prominent role in that space battle, I believe. Mm-hmm. Space isn't really usually my cup of tea, as you can tell. I don't really pick the space battles. But this episode's really great because it's another evolution for the clones, and it introduces them having to make decisions on their own without any Jedi General telling them what to do. So, we're introduced to Waxer and Boyle, who appear throughout the series, and I really like that they do this with the clones. They just introduce them, and then they kind of just show up sporadically throughout the show. I really like that. But they're kind of put to this test. They're going through this abandoned village that was a bunch of people who were forced out, and now they're just refugees, and they come across this child that doesn't even speak their language. And they're trying to just figure this out. And originally they're like, I think we should just go because this isn't military. And then I forget. I feel bad. I don't know which one's Wax or which one's Boyle, but one of them's just like, we can't just leave her here. And you kind of see them kind of wrestle with like, how do they keep this child safe, but also complete their mission without putting her in danger, and also having to get back to the rendezvous point because Obi-Wan and Cody are like, what are you doing? We need to rescue other refugees.
Stuff to do.
Yeah. And then there's this really terrible scene where they come back to her home, and the only thing left in her home is her little squeaky toy, and that's like the only thing she has left, and her parents aren't there, and they're just kind of like, oh my gosh, like at this point we didn't really see clones interacting with civilians. We only saw them just, we're here to fight, we're not here to...
they've just been battling battle droids, and like the after effects of war and like those other dark parts of war we don't really get to see, and I don't think we got to see up to this point in season 1 because we were focused on the physical battles or like the physical landings, and it was against droids, so that whole morality kind of gets taken out of it because like it's a machine.
You're destroying machines,
but when you realize that boots on the ground war means you're in people's streets and people's homes, and now these clones and us as the audience are now interacting with that fact and that reality, and you see the real devastation that it brings, and you have a face to that, and that's... Yeah. I love this episode personally. It's one of my favorite episodes of all time. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's done great.
I have feelings.
And, yeah, as I said before, I really like when they put clones in these positions where they have to make their own choices on topics that are ambiguous to them. They grew up on a planet in growth jars, and then they only were around each other, so now they're seeing this devastation.
And they're meeting new cultures. And
exactly.
Like, they've never seen tragedy or like refugees. Like, they were just...
They're only meant to see their brothers die. They're not meant to see other people in these, like, suffering ideas. And... by the end of the episode, Obi-Wan and Commander Cody, they're always great together, but that's really not the strength of this episode. They're kind of just, they're going to help the refugees, and then obviously at the end, the refugees are freed and their families are reunited. And our little refugee girl, she sees her family, and the end just becomes a nice little bow when they're leaving throughout the whole episode. This little girl is calling them Nara because they're looking out for her. They're giving her food. They're making sure she's okay.
Well, True or false? That's like the only thing she says, right?
She only says Nara.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she says other words.
She's like a little
but,
Pokemon.
Yeah, but she always really just says Nara to them, and they don't know what it means. And by the end of the episode, you don't expect to know what it means, but good old Obi-Wan, traveling the galaxy with Qui-Gon, you learn some languages. And, as they're leaving, she keeps yelling, Nara, Nara, and these two guys are like, okay, we have to know what this means. And Obi-Wan's like, Nara, it means brother.
And it's so sweet, not just coming from a kid, but because they always call each other brother.
Yeah.
And like we just saw on a recent episode of Bad Batch, Omega calls them her brothers.
Right.
And that's just such a strong word for the clones. So the fact that a little girl, a little Twi'lek girl calls them that as well, like it kind of connects the two where she sees them as the same. Mm-hmm. And for these clones, like they haven't really had a lot of interaction, like we were saying earlier, with common people. So now them being recognized as the same,
it adds humanity to them. So
it's just so sweet.
Yeah,
it's just so sweet.
And it's really it's a heartbreaking episode for sure.
Yeah, that's a good tearjerker.
Yeah, and that's unless you have anything. Yeah, go for it.
Fun fact from the Netherworld. You actually get to see Nira, I don't know what her name is, Nira again in Rebels.
Is she really in it?
She is in one of the Ryloth arcs, because they always go back. They always go back. There is a girl who is supposed to be Nira. Like, I don't think
but they never explicitly say
No,
it.
But like...
That is cool.
She's like a little cameo, and I forget what they do to show that it's still her. You can probably find
she probably has like a wax or boil thing on
something like that. She
or
has
maybe like a clone arm piece or something.
I can find it, but yeah,
that'd be cool to see.
I saw that on thing. I was like, she just grew up and became part of the world. It was so sweet.
And the best part about Waxer and Boyle is whenever they show up in the rest of the show, they always have a little tattoo of the little girl on their helmet. Mm-hmm. So you'll see her like drawn on, I think one of them has it on her helmet and one of them has it like somewhere else on their armor set. So it's really cool that kind of...
Well, that's how they...
creates a lineage throughout the show.
And when like clones decorate their armor, it's a way to show individuality.
Yeah.
So for them, putting that on their uniform is that way of saying this is what identified us.
And this is a big part of my life. This
is a big part of my identity.
This affected me. And yeah, that's the first 5.
That's
Gotta
just
segue
the
out.
first 5.
And that's the first 5. So as you could tell, we had a lot of great thoughts on some of these episodes that you might not even remember or you might have overlooked at the time. And I hope that encourages you to go back and rewatch them and really get all you can out of them. And this has been really fun. As you could tell, we were really, really into these simple season 1 episodes.
Really dissect them a bit.
And we're able to talk about them, even though they are, I think, overall very simple in their structure compared to later season episodes. But I think they have their place in this series and in the galaxy. And yeah, this is my 20 to 16 ranking. Next episode, obviously, once again, for all the math nerds out there, will be 15 to 11. And we'll just keep working our way down. Jen may or may not be in the next episode. We'll see.
We shall all wait in anticipation.
But yes, thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed. And I will see you guys next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you.
Bye.